Well, here we are, episode 29,
Well,
Razorback.
welcome to Remainders. We talk about our favorite movies. My name is Patrick. With me always is the multi-talented Darren Varel. How you doing, bud?
Hey, I'm doing great. Good to see you, Pat. Thanks for suggesting another stellar movie for us to discuss here together and share with our audience.
Oh yes. Today we're going to be talking the 80s cult classic Razorback from Australia. Going back to Australia to harken back to a previous episode with the proposition, but we will get to that in a little bit. I want to know, Darren, how was your Thanksgiving and whether or not the Fishers and Sons house is still rocking the coach house in the back.
Thanks for asking about my Thanksgiving. I'd like to know about yours after I tell you about my excellent Thanksgiving. Um, yeah, I've been rewatching 6 Feet Under and kind of getting a lot of shit for it, to be honest with you. Everyone's like, man, that's such an old show. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still great. It still holds up. A lot of people don't realize that HBO was like kind of diving into a lot of uncharted territory back then. I mean, this is 2001 we're talking about, and they're talking about, a lot of life and death and everything in between and what it means to be alive, to love. Um, Great show, wonderful show. We both love it. And so I'm rewatching it. I think I mentioned last episode with my girlfriend, and we know that it's based in LA, which when I was younger, living in Chicago, watching this show, I wouldn't have really thought about that. But now they kind of drop some things that, oh, this is the house over here. It's in this area of California, and they also talk a lot about a lot of locations in California, which I of course know about now since I live here. But for Thanksgiving, we decided to do something unconventional and just take a little trip to see the Fishers and Sons house, which is here in California. So it was awesome. It wasn't that far away. It was about 20 minutes because there was no traffic really. And man, to stand there where this show, a lot of the exteriors were filmed there, but if you know the show, it's a very recognizable house. And a lot of the characters are outside of it all the time. I think the interiors were a stage, but either way, it was amazing to see and just brought back a lot of great memories of watching it when I was younger. And like also, my girlfriend at the time said she's not going to take a photo in front of it. And I was like, well, at the end of this show, you're going to love this show so much, you're going to want to come back and take a photo in front of it. So I took a photo in front of it and I posted it. I'm sure you saw, I sent it to you right away. And yeah, that was my Thanksgiving. How was yours?
Oh, that was fantastic. I mean, that was such a nice treat to get in that picture of you doing that, seeing how that's how you were spending it, because it definitely got me a little jealous that you had that access to that. Because I definitely would not have thought. I definitely knew, like, obviously it was set in California, but I've never even really thought about it being like a physical place that was still, around that you could like check out in the area. But that's pretty rad. Um, I'm really quick. Just I'm interested in who's giving you shit on watching the show and whether or not they're saying it's like any older drama is not worth it, or it's like maybe the characters and the themes have like aged poorly, or if there's any actual critique you've received at all. So
Also, some things that yes, so I'll tell you in a second, but also some things I wanted to mention about the house. It's from the 19, I'm sorry, I think it's from the 1920s, around there, if not a little bit earlier, maybe 1918 it was built. It's a really old house. And it's in this area that has like all these like mansions. They're sort of outside of Los Angeles, where you kind of like thought when these were first built, these were like houses that probably looked out on like some of the most beautiful terrain, but it was very well-to-do people. The person who built it was a Filipino golfer back then, and probably a super successful golfer. And so I think it's in the hands of like a Filipino society now. I don't think you can go inside and see it or anything, but you can definitely go outside and take a photo. Just be respectful, of course. A lot of people do it. And we went the next day to an improv show that my girlfriend was performing in. And if you really want to be vulnerable, tell people what you did on Thanksgiving at an improv show so that they can reenact it. And that was the thing. So from the
okay,
audience,
nice.
they ask, what
Oh yeah.
did you do? So yeah, I've been getting a lot of shit about it. on the internet, of course, just because the internet is a terrible place. But um, the improv show we mentioned, my girlfriend raised her hand and said, "Oh yeah." So everyone's like, "What did you do for Thanksgiving? We're gonna do this on the stage here and improvise some people's experiences." And we said what we did, and so they're sitting there and it's a couple and they're reenacting their Thanksgiving dinner, watching 6 Feet Under, and the guy goes, "Yeah, I know this show is super old and nobody would watch it now, but and of course, like that made me feel like, oh yeah, like, am I an asshole because I'm watching the show from 2001?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. So that sounds like an improv line that is appropriate. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, I certainly would not take that literally. You got 6 Feet Under, you got Twin Peaks. You could stick with the old shows and master the art of TV no matter what. So definitely
agreed.
keep it open. Yeah, that's awesome. Love to hear it, man. That's so cool. Yeah, we definitely wish I could have been there with you with that, but
Me
sounds
too.
like you
Me too.
rocked
Would
it,
have been
man.
awesome
So,
to have you there, man, for sure.
but yeah, I mean, mine was good. We cooked some good food. My typical Irish self. I mastered a couple of potato dishes because I'm pretty stereotypical like that. So definitely my favorite part of a good Thanksgiving meal. And then we made it out to the theater, which I'm curious if you've seen yet. The new Steven Spielberg movie, The Fablemans.
Yeah, so I loved getting your text that you saw it and that you loved it because, of course, I do want to see it. I meant to go this week and go.
Okay, so you didn't catch it yet.
It's playing at the Los Feliz 3, which is down the street from me, walking distance. It's right by um, the post office where I like mail things. And
Oh yeah.
I, for whatever reason, I got busy and didn't get out, and I've been really upset about it, to be honest with you. I mean, the Spielberg film in the theaters,
Yeah.
that's kind of autobiographical. It's like a must see, so I have a plan to do that.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere, even though, it's certainly not making any money. It's bombing pretty hard in the box office, unfortunately. But wow, yeah, I was actually
Why?
pretty.
Because it's not an action film from the Marvel universe.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly one big part of it. I don't think I didn't see West Side Story actually, but that didn't do too well too. So I know he's not really banging it out of the park with the box office, which is just a whole other conversation with movies when they're not, there's room for movies like that. They're not the over to the top action ones, but there were a few people in the theater. It was like, it was Thanksgiving, so you never know like how busy it's going to get, but yeah, I loved The Fablemans. I was really not 100% sure what to expect in terms of like tone. Like I don't traditionally read a whole lot before going into a movie. And so I really didn't know much about it. There was a casting component, which I don't want to talk about too much because it is kind of a pivotal part of the movie, but David Lynch is in the movie. And once I found that out, I was pretty excited for that. But yeah, I mean, this movie definitely is a love letter to film, unsurprisingly, but then to see everything he put into it with his parents, which the scenes are pretty chaotic in terms of like the family drama. But when you combine the two components, the family drama with his learning and his falling in love with film at a young age, absolutely loved it. Yeah, definitely.
Any Spielberg fan knows is that a lot of like the reason he's so good about telling children's stories is because he has sort of this escapism that he's able to have with like this wonderful world of make believe because he came from his parents were broken up, right?
That's a perfect way to put it, kind of connecting those two things in terms of what inspired him to get into film. And there's just a through line to where one of his early films, and this is not giving away too much, he screens one of his early films and it has a pretty emotional impact on somebody in his life. This actually happens a couple of times, but I'm thinking of one scene later in the film, and it just sums up so much of like what drives people to make films, and especially what drove him to master the art. So I'm very excited for you to see it because I'm definitely looking forward to talking with you either on the show or off the mic because yeah, it's definitely one that's going to stick around. I think it's going to age pretty well, like in the retrospective of his career. It's be like because it is pretty unlike most of his movies. He's obviously done a lot different stuff than an action chase movie over the last 20-25 years. But this is definitely near the top of his latter half of his career.
Awesome. Yeah, it's funny because today an Indiana Jones 5 trailer dropped. Did you happen to see that?
I did not. I was watching the Avatar 2 trailer today, so that's what was keeping me busy.
Surprise, surprise.
Which I know you're excited for. That's the reason why I said that. It's so I think who's the director? I think it's the same director as Copland, as we were just talking, texting this week.
Yeah, I forget. At one point I read it, but I don't know offhand.
The Dial of Destiny. Wow, that's a title.
I know.
What did you think of the trailer? I'm excited.
Well, I mean, I loved it. I love fucking Indiana Jones. But speaking of Spielberg, I know he didn't direct this one.
Yeah, that's a big deal. James Mangold, which he's a fucking great director. I mean, he directed Walk the Line.
Yeah.
His next movie, which I think we're gonna have to do a special episode. His next movie is a Bob Dylan biopic. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, he also directed Copland. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to see like what he does with this, and yeah, it being like the only movie that Scorsese doesn't helm.
Yeah. Oh, you mean Spielberg?
Spielberg, sorry. I always got Scorsese in mind.
You get the grapes mixed up, of course.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I loved it, and I think the timing's right to talk about fighting Nazis again, and there's just a lot of great things about an Indiana Jones film coming back. I mean, a lot of people shit on the fourth one. I still liked it. It 2008. It's been a while now, but I remember when that came out, I was really excited. I'm like, holy shit, Indiana Jones is back, and they did some de-aging. That's the big story about it, that they sort of like Scorsese had done in The Irishman. They did a lot of that, I guess, in this film for Harrison Ford, because I believe it does take place, kind of spans things, shows him in his older years, but then goes back and talks about some stuff that happens in his younger years. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I know that's like a thing, and I heard Harrison Ford say that this is the first time he's seen the technology used where he actually believes it, and that's pretty cool.
Nice. Oh yeah, so like by his age, like this one would take place in like the 60s. I'm guessing.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
I mean, that would make sense for like because the last one was in the 50s.
50s, yeah.
Yeah, the Shia LaBeouf handing over the torch didn't pan out for that one, unfortunately. So
not really. Yeah.
that would have been a wild movie. I mean, I would have watched a Shia LaBeouf Indiana Jones just for the fun of it. So yeah, I'm okay with the fourth one. Crystal
Skull, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah. I rewatched Temple of Doom about 6 months ago. That movie is bonkers, and I love it so much. So that's the one. I mean, that's the one that was like on TV the most, like as I was a kid. So that's like kind of the one I saw the most just by default, and so I kind of have nostalgia for it. But that one is a straight up, like by Spielberg standard, that's a straight up like horror movie. I mean, just like with everything that goes on in it. I think that's actually the movie that they ended up creating the PG-13 rating because of. Yeah, like that was the film. They were like, we have guys like pulling hearts out of somebody in this movie, and we're not going to rate it R because this is a family movie. So like, I don't know if they actually rated it PG-13, but that was definitely the movie that prompted them to like have that in between rating, because before that it was just PG or R.
I remember seeing that scene as a kid too, and that was terrifying. I mean, he's like,
right?
They do it like real slow, It's like pretty nuts. But speaking of movies from our youth, I mean, this film skipped us, maybe because the one we're talking about today, Razorback, it's from '84, and so the effects are very '84. But what I was, reading once I was reading up on this film is that it had a lot of kind of drop. It harkens back to some of the ideas that Jaws brought forth to cinema, which I remember, I think you saying this is like the Australian Jaws to me. I kind of wondered why you chose this film. And in my mind, I know like this, after watching it, it's very Tremors, it's got like that very Tremors like feel, but So I know why you like it, but I kind of like, where did you first see it, and what kind of made you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, really quick, I want to give like a quick synopsis for everybody, to kind of give a better general background of the movie, get them a little bit more familiar. I mean, it
Right,
really is like
Razorback
a,
from 1984, right?
yeah, Razorback 1984, directed by Russell Mulcahy. I mean, it really is a story of nature run amok. A vicious wild boar terrorizes the Australian outback. So, like in the first scene, a small child is actually the first victim, and this prompts the child's grandfather, Jake Cullen, who I love in this movie. This is such a cool character. It prompts him to become like a hunter vigilante, and at the same time, an animal rights activist, Beth Winters. She actually goes to Australia to cover some mass slaughtering of kangaroos for pet food, and she ends up getting murdered as well. So we're not giving away too much. This is pretty early in the movie. And so this leads to like her husband venturing to Australia to find answers about the death of his wife. And he ends up teaming up with Jake Cullen on his vigilante kick, both to clear Jake Cullen's name, to avenge the grandchild, and to find the mystery of like what happened to Carl's wife. And so this just all creates into this kind of, like you said, this Jaws like, I mean, essentially every creature feature back in the 80s was a ripoff of Jaws. It's like, as it should be. It's like you have like one of the greatest movies of all time. If you're going to make a creature feature, it's going to at least pay tribute to it in some way. And I mean, this is kind of like an excellent entry into, like you said, one of my very favorite genres, which is the creature feature. You know, you got your Jaws, you got your Tremors, you got your Anacondas, which I watched that last year, which is fantastic, still holding up. But I mean, we'll get a lot more into it, but overall, it is the high and the low that what makes me love this movie so much. It's like a visual and poetic artistry combined with a creature feature ridiculousness of a killer boar. So it's these two things coming together that makes this a visual treat for me, and one that I love. You know, this podcast often becomes the Music Box podcast, since I'm still here in Chicago, going all the time. But that was the first time I saw this about 6 years ago. This was a midnight showing. I think the Chicago Film Society was putting it on, just as a one-off. You know, they were just like, hey, we want to screen this movie because we like it. And so I caught a midnight showing of this, and it was a pretty packed house. And definitely one of the my favorite screenings there, because it got the crowd going, and was a perfect fit for a midnight movie on a Saturday night.
I feel like this is one of those films that's like, if you know kind of thing. It's like you're at a party
Yeah.
and somebody's like mentions that they've seen Razorback, and then
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like, you fucking know about Razorback, like it's like one of those. It's just like, let's talk, like all of a
Yeah,
sudden you
right.
found your best friend at the party. And I love that about these kind of films. That's kind of why you and I, we have so much fun talking like this, is because once you find somebody who really gets like movies like this, it's great. Yeah, and you're right, it opens up right away with the abduction and eventual killing of a child by a wild boar that is like of mythic proportions, large, rarely seen. But when you do see him, you're not there to live about it, or tell the story about it, because this thing is a killer, And it's in the Australian outback. Of course, it's amazing, great terrain, as we talked about before. There's something about that Australian outback that's just got everything. Um, and I guess if you want to talk about Mad Max a little bit, like this is around the time of Mad Max, isn't it? I mean, the original.
Yeah, this is shortly after The Road Warrior, and it's the same cinematographer. So
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, so it's already a clear connection right there. And he did such an amazing job on The Road Warrior, and he just brings so much of it over into this movie. Dean Semler, the cinematographer, he just captures so much that's great and mysterious and scary and terrifying about the outback in the 80s. Although it's like a lot of timeless stuff in there. A lot of the shots between both of these movies, you can tell if it was 500 years in the future or 300 years in the past.
Yeah.
and yeah, so that's definitely a good connection because his talent transfers over so much, and that's one part of why everything fuses so well. And it really is also the, I mean, we'll get into it, but like the poetic artistry of Russell Mulcahy. So Russell Mulcahy was a music video director for years before this. I mean, I didn't realize the extent of his stuff. I mean, he made music videos for Sex Pistols, AC/DC, Paul McCartney, Duran Duran, Fleetwood Mac, the Rolling Stones, Rod Stewart, and he did over like 15 music videos for Elton John.
So small time stuff.
What's that?
So small time stuff, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah, not at all. Yeah, definitely. He was a all-time famer for. I mean, basically the David Fincher of Australia, I'd say. So,
Yeah, there you go.
And so his visual style with like the short, punchy, and almost hallucinatory kind of style just definitely transfers over to this movie, and it is like some of those hallucination scenes when Carl, who's the husband that comes to Australia to look for his wife, he's having this hallucination in the middle of the outback at night, and then wakes up in like just this like Salvador Dali style painting components to the feature, and it's such an incredible look to the movie, like in the middle of this creature feature. It just
Yeah,
really is
kind of like a bummer that this film is like the transfer is so bad. At least it was from the rental on Amazon. I
yeah.
kind of was like, man, somebody should restore this film. You know, I'm sure it looks amazing, like if it could be restored.
There might be a recent Blu-ray release, but yeah, I definitely did not see it on that. I streamed it. It sounds like you did the same, and yeah, the print was a little rough, but you know, this is one of those movies that's been gaining notoriety and becoming cult status over the last 10-15 years, much more than it was before. So I could definitely see like a pretty good print coming out in the next 5 years or so.
Well, with any luck, this podcast will help boost viewership as well.
We can only hope. I mean, yeah. Man, talk about reasons to do stuff like this for sure. So yeah, I mean, and so it really is connecting that. I mean, it's based on a novel by Peter Brennan. I read a couple excerpts. Definitely kind of like a fun 80s creature feature paperback, which there were 1,000 of them back in the day. But there was definitely the bones for like a lot of stuff. And it got me thinking about that Fran Lebowitz quote about books and movies, is that good books make for bad movies and bad books make for good movies, where the bad books, or, you know, mediocre books, they give a filmmaker a little bit more leeway because they don't have to like uphold anything. They're not trying to uphold like a novel that people love or anything. And there's such different mediums that you do have to change. You know, it's like the idea of like directly adapting something to make it just like the book is always bad news. And so it really is kind of like those mediocre books that give way to like a lot of cool movies. I mean, sticking with this stuff, like, and Spielberg, like Jaws and what was the other one I was thinking of? Jurassic Park. I mean, these are both mediocre books that he turned into great movies. And last week, 2 weeks ago, when we talked about Night of the Hunter, that was an okay book that they was adapted into this incredible movie. So it's just something I've always been kind of thinking about. Like I said, it was a Fran Lebowitz quote, and she's got me thinking about that ever since I saw that. So
well, yeah, as a screenwriter too, like that must be a tough job to like jump into somebody else's work and then feel like you're not, you know, ripping apart their work. It's a lot easier to do that when you're like, well, your book didn't do so well in the first place. Yeah. So let me go ahead, you know, and nobody has this in their mind of who the characters are. That's sometimes what the problem is with me in books, is that if I watch the movie first, it's really hard to go back to the book and read it because I'm always picturing Brad Pitt as, you know, that's why it's hard. I don't know. I want to read the Tarantino book on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but I guess in that case, like it's supposed to be those characters from the movie. So you're supposed to picture Brad Pitt in that role. But you know what I mean? It's like if you go back and you see, let's say, the Three Musketeers, and, you know, Robert Downey Jr. played the lead character, and then you go read Three Musketeers 2 weeks later, you're going to think about Robert Downey Jr. and Three Musketeers the entire time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, the few times that I've read a book and then immediately watched the movie after, it's always pretty difficult. I mean, I definitely do enjoy seeing a movie, and then if it's supposed to be like a good book, I'll go back to it because it kind of adds a little bit more. But sticking with the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I would definitely recommend checking that out because that's
Oh, I mean, I am, but you know,
yeah,
I guess I was trying to make a point, but that was a bad one because that was a movie first, you know, and like
right.
then making the novel afterwards. It's kind of like also like these main characters in like history, or like Robin Hood, for instance. You know, it's not like I'm going to read Robin Hood if that's a book. I'm pretty sure it is, right? But I mean, there's so many renditions of that movie that it's not like I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
Kevin Costner every time, or Errol Flynn. I'm just going to be enjoying the film and. Or enjoying the book as like it is because it's lasted the test of time.
So one of the Errol Flynn Robin Hoods playing at the Music Box this weekend, actually, and I've never seen an Errol Flynn Robin Hood, so I probably should check that
If
out.
you should go see if you have the
Yeah,
time. That's one of my favorite. Olivia de Havilland's in it as well. Basil Rathbone as well.
oh, yeah.
Directed by Michael Curtiz too. Technicolor, fucking awesome. If
Nice.
you get a
Yeah,
chance, go see it.
yeah.
Real quick, while we're talking about movies that are playing, Los Feliz 3 next week. I'm busy on the day. I sent it to you on Instagram, but I know you don't have it. I don't think you were able to see it today. They are having Chris Smith at the Los Feliz 3 right down the walkway to talk about American movie, and then they're showing American movie
Oof.
afterwards. I know.
Oh man.
We just did that last week. For anybody who's listening, we just talked about American movies. So the director is going to be down the street from me doing a Q&A at the greatest theater down the street, and I can't go.
Oh, oh, what a great movie. I mean, that was such a fun talk and revisiting that one. But yeah, that would be quite an experience to see that one with a big group and then hear from the director firsthand right after. So
I know. I'm like really bummed out. It's kind of like how I felt going into this, knowing that I didn't see Fablemans. It's like there's not enough time in the day for me. But anyway, back to Razorback. What were we talking about? Where were we? I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there.
I mean,
Oh, the
I
book.
went off.
Yeah.
I went off on the tangent on books, but yeah, I mean, so it is based on the novel by Peter Brennan, and like I was saying, I think that really does help it because it really does create the bones for the eco kind of horror that is instilled in this movie. So Beth Winters, she's the woman who goes to Australia early. She's an animal rights activist. She's trying to uncover what's going on with all this kangaroo slaughter, mass kangaroo slaughter, which Pet Pack is the factory where these two fucking doofuses, Benny and Dicko, work. Which
Best
these
name.
guys are great.
This movie is worth seeing specifically so you can see a character named Dicko.
Dicko is fucking stellar in this movie. He plays just this over the top Mad Max style character. So he would fit exactly right in.
Yeah, with those like steampunk glasses and everything.
Oh,
yeah.
So good. There's that one shot where he just looks at over in the dark, and he's got the one red eye. He's just everything about him. It would fit perfectly in Road Warrior. But it's where the Pet Pack is where Benny and Dick go work, and there's just these two shitheads, and they go out slaughtering kangaroos en masse, and it's basically just to make pet food. And so Beth Winters is the animal rights activist investigating all this. And it really is kind of representing the Razorback that's going around killing everybody. Kind of really is the nature run amok, nature defending itself from the exploitation of the natural world. And it really is those bones that I think kind of create such a good movie, because none of this is like overtly over the top. Nobody's having speeches about animal rights or anything. This is just these characters going in, and then the reaction is that this giant fucking boar is going around killing everybody, defending nature.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because it's like, I guess like we just talked about Mad Max as well, and I mean Mad Max has like the oil crisis, right? I mean, I think that movie came out in the middle of like people lining up for the gas pumps, not able to get gas in their cars during that time. And there's this movie about, well, what would happen if like gas was like something you couldn't get, you know? Well, yeah, well, these people driving around in the desert in these crazy cars killing everybody, you know?
Still a timeless story. That's why it works so well.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I just love kind of the surface level themes that it really packs in there. And then, like I said, when you combine that with Mulcahy's like direction, and which is very cinematic, very poetic in a visceral kind of way, just using the landscape of Australia. And then, like I said, those hallucinatory scenes are just terrifying, and so it just all goes so well together.
Yeah, I really,
The pet pack punks, that's what I call them, the fucking Benny and Dico.
yeah, and the dialogue between the two of them is just great, you know, such like crazy one-liners. This movie has a ton of those, and I'm sure I'll let you do the Jake Cullen line that I know is going to come up later. So I just want to hear your, you know, because this is your film pick, and I know you love. I saw you like loving this line when it came up, so I'm going to let you do that later. But yeah, just like the back and forth with Dicko and Benny is really great to have those two guys, but also they pretty terrifying. You know, there's that rape scene that happened. And it also kind of makes you feel like, well, nobody's gonna find this woman. She's out in the middle of the outback, and like, you know, nobody's gonna help her. And then you think though, well, maybe this Razorback is actually gonna help her, you know. But no, the Razorback ends up killing her.
Which it kind of does for a second, but then you know, kind of.
But then doesn't, yeah.
Yeah. It does and then doesn't. That's a perfect way. But that's nature, you know. There's not. There's no judgment. It just is. So good. Yeah, I mean, some of those visual shots. Sticking on Spielberg. Actually, I heard in a Mulcahy interview right after this came out, Spielberg called him straight up to compliment on the film and literally ask him how he achieved that shot with the two moons that's in there. I don't know if you remember that part. It's like right before the hallucination part, and there's this shot where it shows like two moons in the outback. And Mulcahy was saying, like in their interview, it's like, this is my first feature, and like right after it came out, Steven Spielberg calls me up and asks me like how I achieved that shot and how great it looked. So I thought that was really cool. Speaking of the same year as Temple of Doom, which was between these two, it's pretty hardcore horror year. So
wow, 84, yeah, my God.
Yeah. And there was another 84. There was the chase scene had total Terminator vibes between the score. It had kind of that tech noir score and just the pacing of it. I definitely had a pretty clear Terminator vibe to it. So
I don't want to skip ahead too far to the you know, when the boar finally, spoiler alert, the boar finally meets his demise, but you know, that the way that was cut and edited was very interesting.
Shaking camera was
was
pretty intense. Like it's simple, but it totally works. Yeah.
And I was kind of surprised he got away with it, to be honest with you. People were going to be like, man, people are going to have seizures watching this or something. But it was actually done pretty, and it was jarring. I mean, I think that was the effect, you know, that he was trying to get.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying before, music video directors, you know, like I said, David Fincher, Spike Jonze, there is a pretty unique style that you learn as a music video director because it's so visual that it's clear that a lot of artists have been able to successfully implement that into film, which I love. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, you're right. And do you have to try to get a lot out of some stuff quickly? And I think that's what music video directors can bring to stuff, is that they know how to do that. But then it can also be a problem when you're looking at the long form and you have to like let things play out. And I think they did a good job of the balance in this film. I also really love that, like, there's a lot of things in this that are just so cookie cutter. Like, starts out with like the guy who wrongfully accused of killing his nephew, but nobody knows it's because this Razorback came in, and like they all think it's a joke. Like, that's so classic, like setup for this guy's now an outcast and he's hunting. Like, his mission fully for life is to hunt this
Yeah.
Razorback. And then you've got the animal activist who like is not welcome in the town, like
Right.
the outsider who's not going to get any help from anybody. And then the two assholes who are like going around causing all the problems and stuff like that. It's really got like some classic formula to like make you enjoy the ride, for a creature feature.
Oh, yeah. Who do you think Benny and Dicko voted for? They seem like Trump voters.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think so.
They kind of gave off that vibe
Yeah.
early in the 80s. So.
And I love how like those guys are always kind of too like the weasels who once they get caught in the bad situation, they're like, oh, I was the one who's trying to help, I was the one who was
So I mean, I'm not going to say the weakest, but the least strong part of the movie is probably the actual protagonist, Carl, who isn't really much of a part of the story until halfway through. He comes looking for his wife, Beth, who was killed. It's pretty generic lead protagonist, but I mean, he gets the job done. But yeah, it really is the Jake Cullen scenes.
We're not seeing Ash, here. Like,
no, yeah, he's not bringing strong Ash vibes. He's bringing sufficient New York vibes of a guy who's coming from the city to Australia. So
right.
It's not bad, but yeah, it really is the scenes with Jake Cullen with his gun hunting the Razorback through the outback. It's just so fucking great. This is such a cool performance. He's not stereotypical, but he's definitely leans into this Australian hunter category, and it definitely works. But yeah, the infamous line early on is just kind of like one for the ages. Beth Winters is there in her trepid reporter status, and she goes up to Jake Cullen. This is the first time you're seeing him, like after the trial where he's been basically accused of murdering his grandson, even though he was never like convicted of it or anything. And it's clear he's just become like this new man set out on avenging his grandchild's death. And she's asking him why he's hunting razorbacks. Straight up, great accent. There's something about blasting the shit out of a razorback that brightens up my whole day. And obviously I can't do the Australian accent justice, but man, this guy is a fucking amazing character. Later on,
he's blasting the shit out of a razorback. I mean,
blasting the shit out of a razorback.
Yeah,
so good.
Great. This guy's performance scene
is so great. I mean, and it is kind of those poetic vibes that kind of run throughout, and it's largely him as a character that I think has the strongest part. I mean, there's a scene later on, he's hunting the razorback. He's got a sniper rifle. He's looking for it, and he pans back. He notices it finally, and his reaction is, "Jesus wept." This is what he says when he finds a razorback. Jesus wept. And speaking of Nick Cave, that's exactly what Nick Cave would say if he saw a giant killer razorback in his sniper. Jesus wept. It's so good. I love it.
That's great, man. I know. That's like why I knew immediately this like movie oozes Patrick McIntyre. It's like, this is like the type of movie, this and Tremors is just like, I know when I see movies like that, I'm like, these are movies you love. And there always is like a little bit, like it's fun, it's a creature feature, but there always is a little bit of something in these movies that kind of has like some lasting message, right? And like this movie, I feel like the lasting message is nature always is going to kick your fucking ass. And again, it's unapologetically, it's just going to kick your fucking ass and then move on,
Yeah, I mean, the best creature features, the monster always represents something, and whether or not the best creature features, I'm saying, you can make a monster movie where it represents nothing, but like, the original like creature feature like Godzilla, it was a meditation on radioactive energy and the Hiroshima bomb.
Creature from the Black Lagoon is the same way. It's like prehistoric bones, that, a civilization that you shouldn't have fucked with,
Right. Yeah. So like the best monster movies, the best creature features always have a tinge of metaphor that done right is like it's not going to beat you over the head, but it's just there enough to be enjoyed either as a meditation on social commentary or something, and at the same time, just a fucking monster movie where people are getting slaughtered by something non-human. So, and it really is a balance that makes it the art to be able to handle the two and create a movie that the high and the low can enjoy it. So,
this film too is like, I don't know, nobody really, if you're not familiar, I mean, Green Day has a song, One for the Razorbacks, and I never knew what that meant, growing up. I mean, I liked the song and it was cool. I think it's on Kerplunk, but like, what the fuck is a razorback, but like, of course, it's like an Australian movie, everybody knows what a razorback is. It's like these things are all over the place, and but when you see this thing in the film, I mean, a razorback, I'm sure at this point everybody knows it's a giant pig that's like keeps on coming at you even if you shoot it. Like, it just has this like resiliency, and it's really tough to kill. And so that's kind of like the idea behind having it as this creature, this like overgrown prehistoric razorback is like in the Australian outback killing like little kids and shit, and going after humans. And that's a great idea for a film, but I don't know, like when you're doing it in the 80s, do you think that everybody knows what a razorback is? Like, I don't know, that's a stretch. Like, if you think it's going to be shown in the States, like, is everybody like, okay, I want to go see this movie called Razorback, and then what is a razorback? I don't know.
I mean, aesthetically, it's a pretty cool word, so at least there's that.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, there's a movie about giant killer pigs. It's sometimes a hard sell. I mean, this movie did not do well in the theaters. It definitely was a huge bomb, hence why it was like forgotten for so long. I mean, I was reading some comments on some of the articles I was reading, and a couple of videos I saw. I mean, apparently this is like kind of a classic, not just cult classic, but like a pretty revered horror classic in Australia. So it's definitely something that, like, in Australia at least, is held up as like a movie that is in rotation for horror fans at least. So that's definitely good to know.
Yeah.
And because it definitely deserves its status there in the horror community, and I mean, it definitely has its good amount of fans, but yeah, it's definitely one that, like you said, if you know, you know.
Yeah, totally. And I love those kind of films, again, like, it's kind of cool. I know a lot of people at this point know Tremors. I mean, this, like, what are they on the 8th film in the franchise at this point? But like at originally, I think that was kind of like a film that did well, and then they kind of like had more of a cult following afterwards. It was like, I think it did well initially, but then it kind of went on into like the world of like, oh, like Michael Gross is in this, the guy from Family Ties. It's like, that's weird, but like, and he plays an awesome character, and it's so different than you would see from that character he plays in Family Ties. But then also Kevin Bacon, and it's like, Kevin Bacon, by the way, I just need to say this. I was telling my girlfriend this the other day. He has these great reels on like Instagram that I've been following of him, like with his goats and stuff. And I think he lives over here in LA, and probably in Malibu too. That's how he has goats. But anyway, like, the guy is his career is so perfect. Like, he's in the original Friday, or maybe the second Friday the 13th, or it's maybe the original, number one. Okay.
Sure. Yep.
And then he can be in movies like fucking Mystic River, which is like one of my favorite like dramas, especially from Clint Eastwood. And then he can do like Stir of Echoes, and then like, this guy's in fucking Footloose. Like, Kevin Bacon, man. Like, I feel like people love him, but I don't think people really know why. And it's like, because he can do anything. Like, he's not afraid to be in like the shittiest indie movie, or to do a reel on TikTok where he's dancing with his daughter. Like, this guy kicks ass. And I've always loved Kevin Bacon. I'm sure everybody does, but I don't think anybody's like, I fucking love Kevin Bacon. And I'm saying it right now in this podcast, I fucking love Kevin Bacon. Like, I think that guy deserves, at this point in his career, the biggest accolades any actor can get, because he can literally be in any movie.
Hell yeah. I mean, I'll definitely second all of that. Amazing presence in my life. I mean, yeah, Tremors is by far like what I've watched him in the most. That was just kind of my movie when I was a kid, one of my primary creature features. And so to me, he was always that character. I just saw him last week. He's got that little cameo in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles in the first 5 minutes when he's chasing after the cab with Steve Martin. He doesn't even have a line in the movie. It's just like a totally random cameo. He's just so perfect for. But I saw he's actually, so what I'm excited to see him in is the Toxic Avenger remake.
Shucks, this is what I'm talking about.
So he's the big bad in the new Toxic Avenger remake, which is being directed by Macon Blair, who is in Blue Ruin and Green Room. He also showed up in the Florida Project. Great actor, great director. And it's the Toxic Avenger is being played by Peter Dinklage. So this entire, this movie, it's already shot. So it's definitely coming out in the next year or so. And I'm pretty excited to see what all three of them do with that movie, because that's a trauma classic, at least in my youth. So
yeah, and I mean this is again what I'm talking about. Like Kevin Bacon can do anything. Like whoever his agent is, genius.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. But
yeah, you're doing a great job, Kevin Bacon's agent. Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you tell me about these films, because I don't think I would have seen Razorback had you not mentioned it. I loved Razorback. Is my first time ever seeing it was today. I rented it, so I'm going to watch it again so that I can like really bring it in and like see it, for a second time, where I can, think about it in ways where I'm not seeing it and having to talk to you about it, so I can just like literally let this pig scare the shit out of me. And
soak it up.
Yeah, and like again, I don't know. I feel like this is one that kind of will get me some points at a party next time I'm hanging out and somebody, is like, holy shit, Razorback. Like, it's going to be the coolest moment, and I can't wait for that to happen.
Hell yeah. That's what it's all about, man. Yeah. Turning us on to the good stuff. I mean, this is why I love doing this podcast, turning you on to stuff, everything that I get to learn from you and your expertise. This is why we're doing this, man.
Yeah, sometimes it's like funny because you'll be talking about, like last week when we did our American movie, you're like, oh, I got a movie for us to see. And I'm like, what's this gonna be? And you're like kind of snickering about it. And it's like, that's like the fun for me, is like waiting to find out what the movie is gonna be. And then when I finally see it, I'm like, oh, I totally get it. I totally understand why Pat wants to do this, why he wants to talk about it. And yeah, that makes it so much fun to get into these conversations, because it always, again, it has like, you always surprise me about your picks. I'm always surprised at what you do, but in like a good way. And they always end up to be very Patrick, either way.
Hell yeah. The high and the low, that's definitely my favorite aspect of it. But yeah, I can't promise you're going to like everything we talk about, but I can promise you that everything I choose will definitely have a reason and is at least worth a check out.
What is the deal with you and the Australian kind of cinema? Is that just random that is that way? But because you do love a lot of films that are Australian in nature.
No, I think that was just random with these two, this and The Proposition. We got a derailed, good thing derailed with other movies, but I was going to have these two go back to back just to stay in Australia and the exploitation component of it.
I feel like I'm sorry, Pat.
No, yeah, that's all I was saying.
I feel like you, God damn it, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just feel like there's something that I've seen as like a common ground in a lot of these films, and maybe this is why the Australian films seem to gravitate towards, like, I don't know, being a good setup, because of these like desolate places where there's not many people, and like a creature feature or like All Hell Breaks Loose is like, it's kind of perfect for a setting for any kind of movie where like you can be brought into this world where it's not like, it's sort of like its own world, Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I mean, the setting itself is a character in almost every movie in Australia. At least one of the great ones that I've seen, they definitely utilize the outback as a character in the movie, and that just adds a whole other layer to whatever, either if it's drama or it's horror like this one. So, I mean, that's definitely one component of it that I love. I mean, Australia. I mean, it is kind of crazy to think of, like, I mean, not necessarily a lot of movies filmed in Australia, but it's pretty impressive how many of our most famous actors, English American making movie actors come from Australia.
Hugh Jackman, Nicole Kidman.
Your Hugh Jackmans, your Nicole Kidmans, your Russell Crowes. I mean, it's a very a large output of American actors.
I mean,
working actors, yeah.
Baz Luhrmann making movies, and look at his style. I mean, he's legendary.
Yeah,
Australian.
we're pro Australia.
We're pro Australia. We love Australia. I mean, Mel
Yeah,
Gibson had a little bit of
Yeah.
a interesting career as of the last decades, but he started in Mad Max, which obviously is a classic, and also he's great in Signs, which is one of my favorite movies. We've talked about this before.
I definitely want to do Signs at some point. As the years go by, that's definitely my favorite M. Night, I would say.
Mine too.
Yeah. I still haven't seen Old, which you said you did not like. Is that right?
Yeah, it was unfortunate.
Don't talk about it.
No, fine, but it's like The Visit, it's like, oh yeah, Shyamalan, like fuck yeah, Shyamalan, The Visit, and then everything's kicking ass, and then it's like Old. Like, fuck,
That's just one. There was a
kind of like the stock market. It's like, okay, it's up here and it's like kicking ass, and all of a sudden it plummets all the way to the bottom, and you got to build yourself back up again.
I saw the preview for his new movie, Knock Knock, something along those lines.
I saw it too. Yeah. It's very vague. I'm not sure like what that's going to be, but yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the most vague previews I've seen for a long time. I also saw, going off on a tangent of what we saw recently, but I finally caught up with the Banshees of Inisherin, Martin McDonagh's new movie with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson.
Nice. I hadn't even heard about it.
Yeah, Martin McDonagh, he did. So this is the reuniting with the two of the actors from In Bruges. So he did In Bruges, Seven Psychopaths, and then Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which was nominated for Best Picture. But I think this might be his best movie, set in Ireland. It's about the two characters, and it's basically a breakup movie of their friendship, but incredibly funny, which all of McDonagh's movies have been. Dialogue is so great. I think that's where I saw the preview that I mentioned. It's just what maybe popped that into my mind. Definitely a great one to check out if you've enjoyed it of Martin McDonagh's movies in the past.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's cool. I had not even heard of that film, so I'm glad you brought it up. We'll check it out.
Yeah, decently wide release, not like a huge wide release, but it's definitely in like most major markets. So it's definitely good to see that. I've definitely been seeing, it looks like Colin Farrell may get like his first Oscar nomination for this movie. So
overdue.
What's that?
Overdue.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Yeah, In Bruges I've always loved, so it's such a fun movie to check out.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else in Razorback that we missed?
No, I would love to. I would love to hear people's opinions, or if there's any Razorback fans out there when we post about this. Like, anybody who follows or listens, let us know. This is one of the ones that's fun to talk about for sure. So, one of the cool things about this and why it's so Jaws-like, I think, is because they really make you wait to see the creature being the Razorback. It's not it doesn't show up all the time. It's kind of like the fact that it's always looming around is the scariest part of this film. And when you finally do see it, it pays off. It looks awesome. It's fucking scary. It meets its demise in the most amazing way. So let us know what you thought. I definitely think that is something worth talking about on social media, because God knows there's a lot of shit you can talk about on social media, and this would be one worthwhile conversation.
Oh, couldn't agree more. I would love to hear if anybody's been a fan of this movie, or if you check it out and hear what you think about it. Because definitely a big fan of this one. Talking about the effects, like you were saying, it's like it is that 80s tangible creature effects that was so unique in a time period of the 80s. It was like before computers, before they could just generate whatever. whatever they wanted with CGI, but it was enough advancements in like practical effects with your Tom Savini led artistry. And that's just what makes the 80s so unique in horror, because it was such a tangible experience to watch all these. I mean,
adds to that
just,
fan.
I mean, like The Thing, The Fly, this is like everything about the special effects in these movies is something that's will never get back really, and was just a unique time period in film.
Sorry about that. I dropped my water bottle on the bottom of that. Well, I'm a little out of sorts today. I apologize. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. These 80s effects like definitely add to, like I was saying, like the character of the film itself, like to have this kind of fantasy world that you're kind of in and nobody else gets to be a part of. You're there with these characters. It's really something I don't know if you can do again. I mean, obviously shows like Stranger Things and places like that, they do a lot of these kind of rip off effects of the 80s, but it's not it's definitely not the same. You know, you could try, but unless you go and use that technology, you're never going to have it again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's definitely a unique time in film history, and it's largely because of those practical effects. So
for sure.
Cool. Was that it? Anything else you wanted to mention about Razorback before we move into a little music talk?
I don't think so, but again, thanks a lot for making sure that I saw this film, because I loved it. I enjoyed it very much.
Hell yeah. Love to hear it. That's why I love doing this with you, bud.
Yeah. I'm going to see the Menzingers next week.
Nice.
Got a couple Christmas parties that we're doing out here already. Can you believe it? It's already the end of the year. We thank you guys so much for listening with us all year. I've had such a great year with you talking about this stuff. So in December, I'm trying not to work too hard. I'm going to see a couple shows, like I said. I'm trying to see the Fablemans. I've got we're going to release a new TLB song. I'm telling you, if you listen to this, telling you guys first, it's going to be on the 13th, I believe, if that's in Tuesday, so like in 2 weeks. And yeah, pretty excited about that. We've got a bunch of plans for the band. So yeah, I got some music, I got some art. I've been doing custom commissions. That's why I got my easel up. I've been doing 16 by 20 commissions for like half price, and I've got a couple of those that I've got to do. So I'm busy painting. And that show that I worked on, it's called The Musician's Green Book, An Enduring Legacy, I believe is the full name. The Musician's Green Book, An Enduring Legacy. And that is aired now on PBS out here in LA, and also yesterday premiered in Chicago. So that's out, that's finished. And I think that's all I got to add, man. I'm feeling very like the decks are cleared, you know, it's cool.
Hell yeah. I didn't realize it premiered. So just yesterday, is it available to stream, or is it premiering live?
I think it's available to stream. Yeah. It was live yesterday, but now I think it's probably on like the PBS platform stuff. And you check your local listings, you know.
Hell yeah. There you go. Oh man, I'm definitely going to check that out. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks. And how about you? So you got anything else for the rest of the year? Or you're just going to be seeing a lot of movies?
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely focusing on some more book time. I've been man, this week, so this was like a happy accident. My phone crapped out on me on Monday afternoon. There was an issue with the charger, and you know, this just happens, technology. I was annoyed by it, obviously, because it's a fucking pain in the ass. But then by the evening, I was kind of like feeling like, you know what, I'm not going to worry too much about this. I'll just go casually and get it fixed tomorrow. And that's extended basically until today. I'm getting the new one in the mail. It actually just came today, but I've basically been without a phone all week. And I have to say, what a fucking refreshing time it has been to not have my phone. You know, it's like, I'm not disconnected. I work from home. I worked from home this week, as I do every week. And so I'm not disconnected from anything. I have my access to email through work and my Zoom meetings. So I just haven't had my phone to compulsively look at with social media or whatnot all week. And it has been a much needed break. So I would definitely, like I said, it was prompted on accident, so it's not like I initiated it, but it's been a very positive week for me because I just don't have that habitual reaching for the phone that is becoming.
I'm jealous of that. I mean, that sounds great. For what was kind of like becoming a problem for me was that a lot of times when I was on this, I was producing that Green Book thing that I've just mentioned, the Green Book show that I just mentioned, and I was like taking my phone into the shower with me, just like the calls were coming so much, like there was so much like content, there was so much shit going on all the time that it was like you had to be available 24/7. It wasn't like a normal job. And yeah, I loved the experience on it and everything, but I'm glad to like not have to take my phone into the shower anymore. Like I'm glad I like once it becomes that thing where like you have it all the time around you and it's constantly buzzing and it's constantly blinking and there's all these things that you can see, it starts to become like a little bit of like a mental issue. And I was like feeling a little like the world was caving in on me for a little while. And I'm glad to not have that pressure of the phone always. Like I can leave it in the other room when I watch a movie, like it's, I don't think human beings are supposed to be like constantly overloaded with information that much. I just don't think that we were meant for that.
No, not at all. And yeah, I mean, the phone and social media are amazing tools. I wouldn't want to go without them at all. But at the same time, I definitely speaking for myself, and I think a lot of people are the same. It's like you just fall into a habitual reaching for the phone when you're in between projects or doing
everything in moderation, right?
Yeah. And so having this time off is definitely exposed like how much I'm good without constantly having to check social media or whatnot. So
yeah, except for the fact like
good.
I really wanted you to know about the Chris Smith thing that was happening at the Los Feliz 3, and I couldn't hold you.
Yeah, so you lose out on some parts like that, but unless I'm taking a plane there, I'm going to miss it either way.
Right.
But yeah, no, and for the rest of the month, I'm looking good. I'm taking a week and a half off. Probably go up to Michigan just to hang out for a little bit, stay in a cabin, read some long books.
Nice. That sounds nice.
Definitely something I try to do every winter for sure. I'm reading Gulag right now by Anne Applebaum, which is a pretty harrowing book. It's about the internment camps in the Soviet Union in the 40s and 50s, basically concentration style camps. And it's a Pulitzer Prize winner book, but definitely a harrowing read. But so I've been taking a break with that, with some video games and,
nice.
and some Grand Theft Auto in between that. So
very, nice. That's a nice,
yeah, good balance.
Yeah, very cool. Well, before we leave, we got to do our pick of the week for our songs, right?
Oh yeah, love it. I'm excited to hear what you. I'm loving your picks, by the way. I've been replaying our playlist on Spotify, which has every pick that we've mentioned.
Yeah, let's make sure we talk about that. Yeah, sorry, Pat, I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to make sure we talk about that because I want people to be able to listen to it. I've enjoyed the fact that you made that. So.
Oh yeah, that's going to be a working playlist. So hopefully in the months to come, it'll just keep on growing into a good reservoir of music that we've been enjoying lately. So yeah, you want to go first, bud?
Yeah, I think I'll go first because you went first last time. We'll just trade off. So you know how like every year, like I haven't really been listening to too much music this week because of the just the work that I've been doing, and so I don't really have like a current song. But I looked into this like Spotify, that's like the streaming service of choice that I have, and I looked into what I had like listened to a lot. Do you know how they do that Wrapped thing? And it's always like songs that are, for one reason or another, like I just played the shit out of. And one of the songs,
the comfort songs,
yeah, kind of like, or they meant something to me, and so I just played them a lot. And one of the songs was a song by Sam Cooke called Keep Moving On. And the reason I'm bringing this one up and talking about it, because I played it a lot, and the reason I played it a lot is that it has these great lyrics that are just like Sam Cooke and all the great singers and artists of yesterday kind of like had a way of singing songs very simply. Like the lyrics didn't need to go into too much detail, but they're just like very profound in its simplicity. And the song is called Keep Moving On. And I love Sam Cooke. Is probably my favorite singer of all time. You know, up there with Morrissey, as you know, I love. But for some reason, I had never heard this one up until this year. I feel like I know every Sam Cooke song, you know, and I didn't. And the way that I found out about the song, and it has a good story behind it, I think I mentioned, and I've talked about it before, that I went through some surgery to remove a tumor in my back last year. And I've been going through all this crazy doctor stuff, and you know, since then. And I had a really big doctor's visit where they were going to talk about something and to see, like, you know, where I was going to go from there. And it was kind of something I was really scared about, you know. And I've been trying to do all this work in my life where, like, I don't worry about stuff unless I really have to. And, you know, even then it doesn't matter. You just shouldn't worry about things, because then, you know, you don't know the outcome of things. So you just try to live in the moment. And the reason that I love this song is because after it happened and my brother was waiting for me to, like, tell him the results of this doctor's visit, and I did, and they were positive. And I sent him, hey, everything is good. And he sent me just this song. I put it on play. The song is Keep Moving On. And there's just these beautiful, simple lyrics about keep moving on. You know, life is this way. Keep moving on every day. And I think for any listener out there, if you've ever gone through anything tough, I mean, it's always good to kind of have this upbeat feeling and try not to dwell on it. Try not to stay in too much of a negative place, and move on and move past it, even if it's going to be a challenge. That issue in my life and that medical thing is still an ongoing challenge of my life. And it was a really big challenge last year, but I got to keep moving on. You know, that's why we do the podcast. That's why I do my art. I just got to keep surrounding myself with things every day that I love. So this is a very positive thing at the end of the year, looking back at the Spotify Wrapped and seeing that I played this song a lot. My brother sent it to me, and it was just so perfect. You know, I went for a walk, put the song on when he sent it to me, and I was just walking around, like, really taking in the day and being present in the moment, listening to Sam Cooke, Keep Moving On. So that's my pick of this episode of Remainders. And yeah, I hope you check it out. Let me know what you think if you do hear it. And on to your pick, Pat.
Well, I just want to talk about yours just for a second. Love your pick. I know you're a big Sam Cooke fan. Definitely happy to hear music gets you through some of the hard times. I'm definitely the same way.
Yeah.
I have a vivid memory of seeing a scissor show at Brower House, the old Brower House, and you were wearing a Sam Cooke Lives t-shirt.
Yeah.
That you were so proud to fucking unveil to the crowd.
Still have that shirt.
Oh, fuck yeah. I expect nothing less of that. So yes, you're definitely a huge fan. I think that might have been, like, I was vaguely aware of who Sam Cooke was at the time, but I remember listening to him shortly after that. So I thank you for turning him on to me at the time, all those years ago. So
thank you for coming to the show.
So always a great time at that old Brower House. Jesus Christ. So good. Love to hear it. Great pick. Okay, yeah. So mine, I'll preface it with I listened to this great episode of WTF, Mark Maron. He had Robert Siegel on, not the NPR correspondent, but the writer. He was one of the original editors for The Onion, and then he moved on to screenwriting. He wrote the Darren Aronofsky movie The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke. He wrote The Founder with Michael Keaton. Wow. And one of his first movies that he wrote and also directed is one that I've always loved that I don't think enough people have seen. It's called Big Fan. It's with Patton Oswalt. He plays an obsessed New York Giants fan. This came out in about 2009, I think. So not crazy old, but this is basically when Robert Siegel's career was, like, kind of getting started in screenwriting. Great movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But on the podcast, he was just talking about his love of, like, kind of trashy Americana. And you can kind of see that as a recurring theme in everything he's done. Just kind of like this, The Wrestler, The Founder, just fast food, Big Fan, just obsessed sports fans. He also is the creator and writer of, which I haven't seen yet, but the Hulu series Pam and Tommy, about Pamela Anderson. And you have seen it? So that's Robert Siegel. It's his interest in kind of the trashy Americana. And that's what I love. A great episode. Wonderful guy to hear talk. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. But I did rewatch Big Fan, always a movie I loved. And there is a song in there from John Cale that just captures kind of the tone, especially of that movie, but also of that kind of trashy Americana and gloom and morose kind of tone that comes with a lot of it. And so it's the John Cale song, Big White Cloud, that I'm recommending this week, which is just such a fantastic tune. It's on the 1969 album, Vintage Violence, John Cale of Velvet Underground fame. Definitely a big fan of this. Like I said, it captures this kind of gloomy kind of tone about modern life, even though it's, written in the 60s, modern at the time, but kind of the morose and it's not a depressing song by any means, but it definitely captures a melancholy that is, I think, recurrent through America after all these years. So definitely a big fan of this song. Love to hear it. And obviously it just goes to show how much talent was coming out of the Velvet Underground in the 60s. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love the name of the record too, Vintage Violence. Like that's like your pick last week had another great name for their record. Forget it now, but I don't know. Like if you have a good record title, chances are the record's going to be really good.
Oh, it's definitely a good flag to get.
And so the name of the song is, I'm sorry, Pat.
Big White Cloud.
Big White Cloud on Vintage Violence.
On Vintage Violence from John Cale, yeah. So definitely excited. I possibly have sent you this before, so let me know if I've done that. But for everybody else listening, also a good chance for you to re-listen to it as well. So
yeah, there's links to our Spotify playlist that we're putting together with all these picks in like the comments of the podcast itself. So you could just you could just bash that link, as the kids say, and it'll go right to it. So yeah, that's really good that you put that together. Excited to listen to Big White Cloud. I have not heard that song before. Maybe you sent it to me, but I can't recall right now. So I'm excited about it. Thanks for your pick.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like I said, it just goes to show. It's like I love movies, but man, movies are such a good connector to music. Either between who's in the movies, the music that's being used, the score. Composers now are just modern day classical musicians, and just the pairing of music to whatever story you're trying to tell. It's just I've always looked to film to discover new music. So
yeah, it's a real art. The last time I remember feeling some way about a song and thinking just like, whoa, like whoever really picked this out was just brilliant. And it was watching that show Dahmer, and there's a song in there that I don't want to give out too much. I know that's a little bit of a controversial controversial show, but there's a song that plays during a scene that is just perfect. It puts you in this like weird vibe, but this like feeling about the characters that like is so disconnected from how you should be feeling, but like it's just really done well. And I feel like it's a real big art to find the right music to be paired with something on the screen to really give the audience an experience. So that's why I love your pick this week. And I feel like even knowing the song won't do it justice without seeing it sometimes in the film. You know what I mean? Like you almost got to go and watch that film that you talked about with Patton Oswalt to see it in its place and why it does what it did for you, to pick it as your choice.
Oh yeah, couldn't agree more. Really quick on that Dahmer pick, was it was it a unique song in the Dahmer series, or was it part of the score?
It's a unique song in one of the episodes. It has to do with I believe the guy's name is Tony, and it's an incredible episode where one of the victims is deaf, and they choose this, and it's one of the victims where they really humanize the story and the character, like it's a very, to me, it was a very, um, it was a way to really show that these were real people that deserve to be, their stories deserve to be told, and who they were. And I think that the episode did that, despite all of the information out there about how it was very not good for the families. And I can't speak to that. I'm sure it wasn't good for anybody to relive this kind of stuff. But I think that they paid tribute to this character, well, this person, Tony, who passed away, and the way that he was loved, and the tragedy that happened to him based on this terrible serial killer. But the song placement is just so beautifully done. The episode was beautifully done. And it's almost like, you know, like you can't disassociate the song now from the movie. But interestingly enough, it's kind of like when a song is done again in a different movie, if it's used again and you hear it somewhere else, it almost kind of ruins the scene because you love it so much in like a certain scene. So I don't know. That's only happened to me once. Licorice Pizza uses a song that was used in another film, a Sonny and Cher song. And it's kind of like when that comes up, the artist uses Bernard Herrmann's score from Vertigo at the very, very end of that film. I love that movie, The Artist, but it was such a bad move to use Vertigo's theme song at the end. To everybody's thinking about Vertigo when you're trying to tell a story about this like unique story that everyone's loving, and up to that point, now all you can do is think about Vertigo because it's like the classic Bernard Herrmann fucking score.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No. I mean, yeah, it really is tying the visual to the auditory. That it's just like, I mean, that's what makes fucking film so goddamn great, you know?
I mean, totally.
So
And that's the thing is like you want to watch something, and like when I watch Vertigo, it's my favorite movie of all time. I want to know, like, you know, that score. It's like if you had that Psycho score into something else, like you're thinking about Psycho the whole time. Like, takes you out.
Yeah, I mean, with that one specifically, you're definitely purposely conjuring up that because that's such an infamous score. But yeah, like most other scores may not be instantly recognizable. So definitely.
Anyway, I digress. But yeah.
Yeah, no, love it. Yeah, man, two great music picks.
As we get out of this talk, I just want to say I am as Chicago as I could be today. For anybody who's not watching this, I've got a mustache and my fucking old style sweater that I got from the brand manager of Old Style himself, Anthony Spina, one of my friends. He's no longer with them, but when he was, I was able to get this amazing Old Style cold beer classic signed sweater that I get compliments on all the time, and it just pairs perfectly with that mustache, doesn't it?
I mean, you got Dicka vibes going on hardcore right now. Love it. I mean, you got the great mustache, the unofficial flag of Chicago neighborhoods. It's by far the unofficial flag.
Yeah.
Yeah. You almost got the stash beard stash.
I know.
So you just got to grow this out a little bit more and then keep this prominent, and you'll be rocking that beard stash.
I don't know if I mean, this was hard enough to like walk around with a mustache, just like, you know, creeping around LA with a mustache on. So to have the beard stash, I think that's like another level of like badassery that I have to perfect. So I'm waiting for you to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it is something I would love to do, but man, yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with my beard. So maybe I'll have my barber kind of wrangle something up next time I go in. So which has got to be soon because this is getting needs a little wrangling in for sure. So
it's going okay because it's winter there. So, you know.
Yes, but the problem is, if you remember Kurt Russell in The Thing, when he's stuck out in the cold and then they catch him and he's got icicles down to here in his beard. This happens to me when I'm going for my walks in the Chicago winters. So it's a very real thing. So
you're looking like Jack Nicholson too, you know, in the Shining.
Yeah, I definitely give all these classic movie stars a run for their money with the frozen beards.
Well, great. Thanks for bringing Razorback to my attention and to the attention of everybody out there. We've got some great picks of the week for our song choices, and we talked about a lot of things under the sun. There are a lot of episodes in the remainder catalog at this point. We're on 29. I think maybe the last one that we do this month will be 30. That sounds like a good place to kind of stop for the year. Yeah. We do one more next year. It could be episode 30. And then we start with season 4 next year.
Hell yeah, man. Having an amazing time. Talk about all these movies that we love with you. So definitely
Yeah.
looking forward to keeping it going.
Me too. Maybe we'll have some folks out there throw some recommendations our way. But in the meantime, we're just going to pick out what we love and talk about it next week, which will be my pick, which I haven't picked yet, but I promise I'll surprise you. It'll be a good one. And we'll see you next time.
Hell yeah. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Talk to you guys soon. Later.
See ya.